Well, so first off, name's Meesh Powell, or Mishael Powell. People call me Meesh. I'm a fun, exciting, intelligent person. I love to communicate with people, talk about certain things, issues. Yes, I play football, but I don't want that to be the main piece you know about me. I'd rather you know about, my purpose, people in my life that have helped me, and just kind of how I've developed into the person I am today.
Meesh, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the win this weekend. It's amazing watching how things have transpired, watching your story from a distance. And it's also amazing to see someone in our community really go after what they envision or their passions. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
I want to give you your flowers while I'm here in front of you.
Thank you.
Because I know that it takes a lot of sacrifice. Being here at the UW is interesting because I don't know about you. I think growing up here, being from here, you know the UW and you hold it in such a high regard.
Right.
It's like my state university or whatever. And then you have opportunity to go here.
Yeah.
It feels like such a distant world from where the Central District, which is what we're about to discuss, where we're from. Sometimes it feels like a bubble.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It can be consuming at times if you allow it. And that's on the end of myself as a student.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine what that's like being an athlete.
Yeah.
And in that sense, I think identity is super relevant for this conversation.
Yeah.
The premise behind this episode is you're not what you do. You are who you are. Right. Not placing a value on your performance, but a value on what's intrinsic, what's inside of you.
Yeah.
And that came about because I had my own journey of having to really dig deep and be like, who am I beyond what I can produce or who I can benefit?
Right.
And it definitely matures you. I think COVID matured all of us.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely.
So thinking about that, I want you to describe to me your version of the Central District. I'm curious to hear this.
My version of the Central District, I would say diverse. I would say full of joy. So like my involvement in the Central District, not only playing for CD Panthers, but I went to Rotary.
Oh, snap.
Right on 19th and Spruce. So I went there from maybe second grade all the way up to seventh grade. So, and I would go to the summer camps. And I would do everything. My parents dropped me off at 9 a.m., pick me up at 5. So I'm at Rotary all day. We would go to Pratt Park, Powell Barnett Park. So just my experience from that, I always had good times.
Yeah.
And it was also like, not, I would say, an escape, but I went to Tops K through 8, which wasn't really it was probably a predominantly white school, which is most schools around here. So it was kind of an escape to where I can be around just people that look like me. And for some reason, we always have these same stories, same jokes, just a great place to relate, I would say. And yeah, all I can think of the Central District is good, fun times. I remember going to CD Panther practices, walking from Rotary, going down there, and then you see a bunch of kids, the occasional someone yelling at somebody. I remember getting the Panther burger. That's the main burger that they have at the CD Panther games. I remember we used to play for the Bantam year. That's like ages 8 through 9. And that's usually the last game of the night because it starts in the morning. And I remember those games used to be packed. Like, those used to be crowded. Whoever was there, especially if we played like Rainier Ravens or like SeaTac Sharks or something like that, it would just always... I just remember always being a good time, fun time, people laughing, running around, joking. So I would say the Central District to me is like, I would say empowerment, love, and just like a sense of like community for sure.
That's so funny because nothing was like the CD Panthers concession stand.
Yeah.
That concession stand
bomb.
Hits like on a different level, right?
Like no other.
And then you like have to go and get it and then come back or you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
And don't let it be a practice.
Yeah, don't.
Because it's like, oh my gosh. And you got the drill team or the cheerleaders in the corner.
They right in the corner.
Yeah.
They getting in the corner. Everybody else practicing on the field.
Yeah. That is hilarious.
I'm telling you.
And it's interesting talking about the Rotary, because as an older sister to a little brother, it's a different relationship because I wasn't playing football,
right,
and I wasn't playing basketball at Rotary. I mean, I think they had the girls team.
They did, yeah.
But I didn't get there yet.
Okay.
I wasn't ready for that young. But I do remember what that energy was like, and that space was like, and you know, my dad interacting with these fathers whose sons had played together and they had played together, and it just felt very communal, and it felt like, I hear you saying, belonging.
Yeah, most
you
definitely.
know, and Tops, I mean, just to give people who don't know geographically, Tops is further north.
Yes.
And the Central District is east of downtown Seattle. So the Lushai area, etc. And I spent a lot of time in Madrona. I went to Madrona.
Yes. Madrona.
As you know, and Madrona, it felt like a place of belonging, but so much history.
Right.
It's hard not to be there and not think about the Black Panthers, you know, because that's where they grew up. Or I went to Garfield also, go Bulldogs.
Yep.
And it's hard not to think about community and culture there, you know. It's important to have that sense of where you come from. What would you say that process or even your home life taught you about identity, or what values were instilled to you early on?
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I give it all credit to my mom and my dad. I mean, those two, they're the reason why where I'm at today, and they're the reason why the way I think and kind of like how I move around, I would give it to them. I would just say, just instilling just a purpose. You know, my mom always talks about, like, you know, God has a calling on your life. So like, there's certain things that kids are doing that you're not supposed to be doing. And the reason why is because God has you on this path. So you need to make sure to stay on that path. So I would just say those two specifically, my dad, you know, being strict, you know, hey, get home by 6 o'clock. If you're not, it's gonna be problems. So I would just say them being strict, but also like, not like you can't go out anywhere, you can't leave. They were just like giving me freedom, but it was like, it can be taken if you don't do it in the way I want you. Yeah, you can go out with your friends, but if I say get home by 9 and you get home by 9:10, okay, well now you know you're not going out the next time because I've already explained that you need to be home by a certain time. So I would just say them being strict, and also I think instilling, I give my credit to my mom a lot, but instilling, you know, just God in my life as well. You know, my mom's a very Kojic woman, Church of God in Christ.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so we went Mount Calvary, so they don't play. So my mom, so my mom's a very Kojic woman, and she just instilled like rules of just like that I learned just off of just reading the Bible and learn of just also just stories. And she always got a scripture for something. If I have an issue, if I have something, she got a scripture that she knows. It's not even, I'm being so for real. She got a scripture that she already knows. It's not even like have to think about it. So I would just say all those combining together, and also seeing them just how they move and operate, seeing, you know, them working 9 to 5s, dropping me off, going to work. I know they're working hard. I know they're doing a lot. And I thought of it as me as a kid, and me and my sister was like, it's almost a disservice for them to be putting all this work in, and then now I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing when they think I'm doing something I'm supposed to be doing. So I think all those kind of played in a role to make sure that I carried myself a certain way, like whenever I'm in public, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's such a blessing to have.
Yeah.
You know, I also grew up early on in a 2-parent household, and there's nothing like that.
Right.
And it's definitely a blessing, but I'm super weak about the Kojic mom.
Oh yeah, no, she don't play.
Because my mom grew up Kojic too, and ooh-wee. Yeah. I wonder if you got this one. Did you get the charity starts at home? Did you get that one? Charity starts at home, then spreads abroad?
I didn't get that one, but I got the like every morning, I say I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
That's the one.
I walk out, hey, what'd you forget? Oh, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's the one I always remember for sure.
Yeah. Thinking about those values, and I even like how you mentioned having a perspective of what it means to work hard and also to sacrifice. And it also sounds like your parents' commitment to you and your sister.
Yes.
It was a service of love. You saw that as a model for how to present yourself, how to go about things, how to approach situations.
Right.
So I mean, the truth about really us being here from our community, sitting down and having this conversation, specifically you being here, sitting down and having this conversation. It's important that I identified early on and addressed early on to give you your flowers.
Right.
And I know with you is attached so many other people who have poured into you and to who you are today.
Right.
But I say that because I know that the routes coming from where we grew up and culturally, they're not always, some can be difficult.
Right. Oh, most definitely.
You know, and not everyone gets to land their feet on solid ground and keep it moving, because some of them don't have support or situations have occurred. And so when I think about that, I ask you, thinking about Rotary, I don't know, 10-year-old Meesh, what were the options around for you? What were the models for you? And how did you know that, like, how did you choose sports? Like, what was it about sports that drew you in?
A 10-year-old Meesh, I would just say, overall, observation wise, I was kind of introduced to a lot of things. So like my dad wasn't really, he wasn't not big on sports, but it wasn't like, oh, you're not just gonna play sports. So like my dad used to send me up to Redmond. I would do like a coding class or like some type of seminar, and I think the purpose of it was just to have me like see other things, that there's other things besides sports, and there's other things besides just like playing football or playing baseball. But I would say Rotary provided me with just overall, like I remember we used to have like little art, like people would come in and we would paint, or we would have typing classes. You learn how, like, that's how I learned how to type on a keyboard, was at Rotary, and I can now type, memorize, and do things like that. So from a observation standpoint, I would say those were the things around me, and I always saw football, and I was big on baseball before I played football.
I think I remember that.
I was big on baseball. I swear I could have gone to the MLB, but that's
we'll leave that for another day.
Yeah, that's another day. But I would say it was just always around me, and my friends played football a lot, and my friends played sports, and I didn't like football probably until I started liking it before I went to high school, but I hated the whole like contact thing. Like you like hitting, like that just wasn't, I was like, I'm not that type of guy. But I would just play because every summer everyone signed up for football, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be the only kid just left out. And so I would say I probably got myself integrated into sports more because my friends and like people that I knew like always would play, so that's what I would play. But then I would say I started to develop my own type of like love for the sport. Okay. So I was kind of forced into it, but I developed my own type of, okay, this is why I like football. This is why I like to play baseball, and this is why I may want to continue this. And then I would say probably 8th grade, that was when I had a coach that ended up coaching at O'Day. Irish, go Irish. And
I'll let you have that one. Yeah. I'll let you have it.
And he kind of sold me on how O'Day was with football and how they liked football. So that's when I kind of was like, ooh, like I kind of like this whole football thing. So I would probably say that's when I kind of pushed towards. But like when I was a kid, like people like would say like, oh, you're finna be the next president, because I was just like smart at things, and I wasn't really into sports, but I like doing like little computer stuff or math problems. I'd be the first one, finish the little math, get the little math sheet, little assignment, like first one to finish that one. So I would just do a lot of things educational wise. So I would say I probably started transitioning more towards football in my, I would say, second part of like my living. I'm only 21 now, so probably when I was like 13, 14 going into high school, that's when I really started to be more on sports. But I would say before that, I was really open to anything, like whatever like I saw people doing, I always wanted to try it. So I would say that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The interesting thing about growing up in the Central District and it being a generational community is that people know people.
Right.
And I think I roughly do remember you playing baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting when you introduce a child to what they can be and all that they can be,
right,
the options that they have.
Yeah.
And we know that that's not always accessible for everybody.
True, very true.
And so to have that and to be well-rounded, it's an intentional, deliberate effort that has to be made.
Yeah.
It can't just spring up. And the fact that you latched on to football was because it was something that was presented as so was coding,
Right, exactly.
math, typing,
Right.
baseball.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, I'm curious now looking back,
Mm-hmm.
what were some routes that you see some of your peers then take?
I would say I don't think that my friends back then they didn't take the same path that I took. And I would say I used to have about 2-3 friends, I'm not gonna say their names, but I had 2-3 friends that where my dad would like kind of mentor them. So these were probably my 3 closest, tightest friends. 2 of them would spend the night. One of them went to the same school. We all were kind of like all connected and intertwined. And I kind of just saw growing up, like seeing how we all kind of split apart, like in the moment, like maybe like mad, like why would they why would they do this? But seeing it now from a different perspective, it's almost like that was kind of like my dad could only do so much to help, but you really have to think back to like where like they really are raised and how like they really come from like a different environment that I came from. So besides being mad, it's more being like, okay, like my dad tried to give you, see it through how I see things, but at the end of the day, like your parents and what you're surrounded by, like you'll become a product of that. Not all the time, but like you know what I'm trying to say, like in terms of like that's just what you see. So as much as you try, like it's up to like the kid or whatever can kind of either switch their mindset or things like that. But I would just say the routes that they took weren't, I think now thinking back, they would regret taking the routes that they took. Growing up, I see that it's so much more deeper than just all small different things like, oh, let's go here, let's go to these places. But like, no, like really making sure like these kids are on the right path and making sure these kids are shown a different direction. And I was very fortunate because I didn't really realize how blessed I was for me to be open and see all these different paths that I can take, when there are a lot of kids now like are just chose, like some kids think, okay, football is my only option. Right. And it's like, it's really not, but you just have been told for so long, or because of your environment, you see this is the only way I can go. And I think that's kind of like an issue now, is that like people, I would say in the Black community, like kind of think, sports is like a really good way to go. But I feel it's like sports is good, but I was like, there's so many other options and there's so many other things that people are doing that Black people we can thrive in. I feel like we can be the best in it, the best in that field, the best in that category. So I would just say it's deeper than you think when it comes to how people like end up veering off to different directions. It's not just about like, oh well, that kid was just, oh, he just wasn't listening, or he just wasn't, like, no, like that kid like probably had a lot going on at home. You didn't even know that. You were just seeing him saying hi, what's up, and you were kicking him, but little did you know what was going on at his house. Little did you know what was going on at her house. Like there's so many other factors that play into it. And I think now growing up, seeing like how the routes they took, and now knowing like their true history and like background, I'm like, oh, like this is why you may have leaned towards this way. This is why you may have like leaned towards that way. And this is why I didn't lean towards that way, because I had other people around me saying, hey, no, when they have may not had that. Like they could have had like someone every once in a while, hey, now you're not supposed to be doing that. Yeah. But I had every day, like to where it was drilled in my head that, oh yeah, that's not acceptable. Oh, you shouldn't do that. But I think if you don't get those type of barriers and that type of like discipline, I think the older you get, the more free you become. Yeah. And the more you feel, okay, now I can make that decision, or I can do this because no one's telling me to do this. So I would just say overall, yeah, it really goes deep into like how people are raised, and layers, like how people grow up and like how they become like, and how they kind of end up where they are. It's not just because of, it's just because like, he's just like a number. Yep, I'd expect this to happen. Like, no, like you don't know what that kid's going through. You don't know what that kid has dealt with his whole life. Like, so don't read a book by its cover. That's kind of that's something I would say most definitely.
2 snaps to that.
Yeah.
2 snaps to that.
Yeah, I'll give 2 for sure. Yeah,
because you know, I'm not sure if your mom used this one, but train up a child. Do you know about that one?
Yes.
Train up a child the way they should go. When they grow, they won't depart.
Right.
But it's facts.
Yes.
And, you know, going to Madrona, I had a lot of privileges in comparison to a lot of my other peers. Talking about a school where it's like 85% black.
Right.
Other groups included in the black population of students there and staff were from the African diaspora. So they might have migrated there. They might have been first generation. Their parent may not spoke English. They might have been living in an apartment where there's like 17 people. That's an exaggeration.
Right, but I see. No,
you know?
Right.
And looking at the males around me in that space, and not saying that women aren't preview to it.
Right.
Looking at those males in that space, I saw two options so clear for them.
Right.
15 minutes down the street, you have two places. You either have the University of Washington or you have the jailhouse.
Right by Bailey Gasser.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I know what the place exactly what you're talking about.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like either or. And it felt so daunting. But I was really blessed as well because I had parents who would literally come into the classroom and be like, hey, don't talk to them like that.
Right. Right.
Or that's my child. That's somebody, you know? And what I hear you saying overall is that everyone has a story. And again, stitching in the idea of identity, kind of like a plant. You plant those seeds, they grow. And no one asks a flower, why are you that flower?
Right.
You know, why did that flower not grow? Or why was that flower, I don't know, not to its fullest potential? They just assume.
Right.
They don't look at the soil. They don't look at where they were potted, the environment.
Right.
So there's a lot of layers to it, like you're saying. I feel like if you've been blessed, share that wisdom, share that knowledge, put it out there. It doesn't mean that you're void of any hardship, but it just means that you have something to give that you notice not a lot of people have, and it's wealth. Right. It's wealth of knowledge.
And like we were doing good, and I just wanted to do well so bad. I wanted to do so well. And I think, I would say like it was honestly a blessing that happened because, you know, getting football taken away, I got to like kind of take a step back and like just see everything, you know, not practicing, not having to get ready for another team. Like, okay, now what do you do with that time now? And it just kind of opens your whole mind to like this isn't just, football is just one thing. That whole sense of like having a different life is very key and important, and not in just football, but just in any work that you do. Like you don't want to get so caught up in the work that the work has you and you don't have the work.